We could come back to this country and we could be quiet. We could hold our silence. We could not tell what went on in Vietnam. But we feel because of what threatens this country, we have to speak out. Millions of men who have been taught to deal and to trade in violence and who are given the chance to die for the biggest nothing in history. Men who have returned with a sense of anger and a sense of betrayal which no one has yet grasped. We rationalized destroying villages in order to save them. We saw America lose her sense of morality as she accepted very coolly a My Lai and refused to give up the image of American soldiers that hand out chocolate bars and chewing gum. We learnt the meaning of free fire zones, shoot anything that moves, and we watched while America placed a cheapness on the lives of Orientals. We watched the United States' falsification of body counts, in fact, the glorification of body counts. We watched while men charged up hills because a general said that hill has to be taken, and after losing one platoon or two platoons, they marched away to leave the hill for the reoccupation of the North Vietnamese. And we are asking Americans to think about that. Because how do you ask a man to be the last man to die in Vietnam? How do you ask a man to be the last man to die for a mistake? And so when 30 years from now our brothers go down the street without a leg, without an arm or a face, and small boys ask why, we will be able to say Vietnam, and not mean a filthy, obscene memory, but mean instead the place where America finally turned and where soldiers like us helped it in the turning. Thank you.
VVAW was it was great therapy. We were working it out ourselves, vets taking care of vets. We were generals in our own right. And we didn't join anything, we became something.
And yes, I was a Marine, but I was first and foremost a citizen of the United States of America. And being a citizen, I had certain responsibilities. And the largest of those responsibilities is standing up to your government and saying no when it's doing something that you think is not in this nation's best interest. That is the most important job that every citizen has. I served my country as honorably when I was in Vietnam Veterans Against the War as I did as a United States Marine. And in fact, I conducted myself as a Marine the whole time I was in VVAW. My whole life I conduct myself as a Marine.
Navy Lieutenant John Carey, who had commanded a swift boat in the Mekong Delta and was one of the organization's leaders, was invited to address the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, still chaired by J. William Fulbright.
I went up for the presentation, and it was standing room only, and I was crammed up against the wall in the very back. And when John gave that presentation, I felt like he was speaking for all of us. I thought, I have never heard such an incredible speech that says exactly what I'm feeling. You know, it was extraordinary. Extraordinary.
But some veterans remembered a different part of Carey's testimony. Testimony in which he repeated accounts of atrocities he had heard from other American veterans.
They told the stories of times that they had personally raped, cut off ears, cut off heads, taped wires from portable telephones to human genitals and turned up the power, cut off limbs, blown up bodies, randomly shot at civilians, razed villages in a fashion reminiscent of Genghis Khan.
What I saw in Vietnam was not the soldier that Mr. Carey or his colleagues were describing at that time. There was no widespread atrocity. There were a couple of units that went right off the rails, and we can talk about that, but they were not out-of-control animals, which was the way they were portrayed. And what was even worse was they were alluding to the fact that you would take ordinary kids and turn them into these savages, war criminals, and the military was doing that, and it didn't happen that way. I'm still very angry about that.